Hi, I'm Andy Kindler. You may know me better than I know myself. Coming to you live from the void. It's what you can do with your old pal Jake. Welcome, Jake.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. And we have a couple of folks from the Majority Report joining us on this April Fool's Day with the power of technology, just a pinch of imagination. Uh, Hi, welcome to Salty Saturday. This is WYCD Wicked, that of course stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and we got Brandon from the Majority Report in the void with us, running the show. I'm going to try to be a little nicer to him than Sam is, but other than that, I'm planning on doing basically the same thing he does. Thank you so much for joining me. The point of Salty Saturday is to blow off steam, to keep our energy up, and generally have fun with the news of the week. This is a great week for it. Ooh, boy. A lot of different reactions to the indictment, the first ever indictment of a former United States president. What I wanted to say before we go into all of the fun poking is I will probably talk less and less. Can't promise I get curious, but less and less. The plan is to talk less about that specific Trump case because what are we advocating for? The indictment, the charges, when it's obvious that a crime has been committed. In cases, for example, like Michael Cohen's, where he went to jail in a scheme that Donald Trump was named in, or at least insofar as the person named, individual one, could be no one else but Donald Trump. But beyond that, what we're not advocating for is a conviction. That is, of course, for the court to decide. Still going to follow it, but it's going to be largely as it pertains to the web of crime Trump appears to have been involved in. Also, there is going to be larger and larger gaps between updates on this case in particular. So I don't think that we will even notice its absence. All right, Brandon. Well, we've got our good pal, Foxy Dragon, now Wicked Foxy Dragon. Hugely appreciative of that, by the way. Well, did you know she is also an author? Indeed. She wrote on April 1st a story on Medium that I'd like to share with y'all because I feel it is incredibly relevant to our current situation. You see, there are school shootings that happen just about, or there's mass shootings that happen just about every day in the United States of America. And it does not happen every day in other countries. The thing about that is that we are allowing it. Can't go on like this. It's literally that simple. We cannot go on like this. But we don't have to put it in my words. Let's listen to the words of Wicked's own Foxy Dragon. Damn it, Brandon. I'm sorry. That's a Sam thing. I'm going to be nicer to you. But we got to get the smoother transitions here, you know? That's all I'm saying. All right. There you go. Easy peasy. Let's have a read here. Republicans need to stop giving guns to our children's murderers. Coming out the gate hot. Good. That is accurate. More of us should be outraged. Why are so many of us sitting by, watching our politicians put guns in our children's murderers' hands? If there is any one topic everyone should be able to agree on, no matter what sex, gender, age, political party you are, we should all be able to say that school shootings need to stop. Something must be done. Our children deserve better. People need to wake up and see the whole picture and not just tunnel vision. There is something that can be done. In fact, there's a lot of somethings that can be done. It just takes a little uncommon sense. We push our kids when they don't pay attention in school. We nag and nag about how important an education is. We tell our kids they have one job to do, and that is go to school and do the best they can. How can we possibly expect our kids to focus, learn, or do good in school when they must worry if the next person who walks in the classroom had a bad day and decided the best way to fix it is grab a gun and shoot everyone they can at the closest school? We are so used to hearing about some unhinged crazy person who can legally get a weapon that can kill a bunch of people in a short amount of time, did get a gun and decided to bring it to show and tell. We aren't even shocked that it happened, much less feel strong enough against it to demand something, to demand someone do something, anything about it. I get it. What really can be done? I mean, sure, requiring background checks for gun buyers won't stop all gun violence. Sure, removing the ability for untrained civilians who are barely adults from buying guns meant to be used for war isn't going to end all gun violence. Sure, listening to family members reporting concerns about a loved one to prevent them from buying a gun won't prevent all gun violence. Sure, requiring gun buyers to register guns won't stop all gun violence. Requiring gun owners to have insurance on their guns won't end gun violence. Requiring gun buyers to have a license proving they know the very basics of using a gun is not going to stop all gun violence. And sure, holding a gun owner responsible for any crime committed with their gun, even if it were stolen or falls into the wrong hands because it was not stored correctly, and a child accidentally shoots someone, that won't prevent all gun violence. But if you have any uncommon sense, you realize background checks might stop some people with violent backgrounds from getting a gun. Stopping gun sellers from selling guns designed for war to average citizens can mean a shooter only kills 5 people instead of 20. A concerned family member might report their concerns and stop one unstable person from buying a gun and killing a classroom full of kids. Training gun owners instead of letting anyone over 18 purchase a gun might make it safer for a bunch of people to own the guns. Just as registering and insuring a car makes people think about how they drive, registering and insuring guns might make gun owners be a little more aware of the danger of having a gun, having a gun is, and motivate them to store it a little bit safer. If gun owners can be held responsible for any crime committed with a gun they own, even if they had nothing to do with the crime or even know about it, I'm guessing gun owners would be a little more careful with how many people have access to their guns, preventing a good portion of people who could not buy a gun from getting a hold of one without the knowledge of anyone. Seems to me, even if just one single person is saved from an unnecessary death by shooting, it would be worth it. Yet these simple things could potentially save hundreds of lives a year. That's a taste of what Foxy Dragon wrote. A taste. Go read the whole thing. Links in the description. Foxy, you knocked it out of the park. That is a home run opinion piece. Beautifully done. I'm delighted and honored that you shared it with us, man. Well done. Okay, a little less perfect. There we are. Brandon, you got to, Hal, you got to, it's 2 buttons. You'll get it. You'll be fine. The Ramones, well, kind of, yeah. Foxy Dragon says Trump cannot be quiet. He will keep it in the news. I know. I'm trying to high road this. I don't think it's going to wind up on that particular path, but I feel like it's important to put in the effort. Certainly, though, I do want to make it clear. At this point, the advocation part, the advocating, the pressuring, that ends. Because, folks, we did it. That's mission accomplished. We are looking to have the justice system work equally. In this matter that we're talking about, that is the goal. Goal achieved, at least in the state of New York. In that matter, there's a whole lot of other stuff to do. But that also means, bam, check that right off the list. That is something we can toast to being donezo. I mean, it's a great weekend, man. It's a great weekend. Oh, good. Well, we are going to have a very brief cacophony. I think that's a word. As I load up about 7 clips. I'll tell you what, I'll let the wicked audience vote on this one. You guys want to see some positive news about Ukraine kicking Russian asses? Do you want to see, not that because we just played it, a Trump supporter scrambling to defend their position on firearms, a fitting follow-up to Foxy's article? Or would you like to see Lindsey Graham panicking on air about the crimes he was involved with? Maybe finally seeing some consequences. So we got Lindsey Graham panicking on air, Ukraine kicking Russian butt, or a Trump supporter being unable to justify his stance on guns. Let me know what you think. We'll play the first one that y'all just first one you guys say is what we'll do. And the rest will be muted. There we go. Ooh, we also have no, we'll do that later. Trump has to be the set. Oh, Dave Spurlock. Interesting. Dave Spurlock says Trump has to be the center of attention and will do what he can to stay there, good, bad, or indifferent. That's terrifying. Mars Falcon says Lindsey Graham needs money. Show us what his Meemaw told him. All right, will do. There it is, folks. We're starting with Lindsey. So here's my pet theory. I wonder. This clip features Lindsey Graham on the verge of tears. Truth be told, I didn't see the context before that. Maybe something else is going on that I'm not aware of. But I have a pet theory, which is that Lindsey Graham is panicking because at one point, he could have gotten off the Trump train. And that was the afternoon of January 6th, 2021. He almost did. Then he got back on. Now, particularly since he helped out with the whole Georgia thing, particularly since he's named in the January 6th documents, the report, I think he might be looking at Trump getting prison time, or getting indicted and potentially getting prison time. And quite rightly, freaking out. Just a thought. Let's have a look.
So what's behind all this? Hatred. They tried to destroy Kavanaugh because they wanted to keep the Supreme Court seat open. They're trying to destroy Donald Trump because they fear him at the ballot box. To the conservatives out there, make sure you vote. If you got friends, make sure they vote. If you don't have any friends, go make some friends. But
I mean, it's so far a good strategy.
you need to help this man, Donald J. Trump. They're trying to drain him dry. He spent more money on lawyers than most people spend on campaigns. They're trying to bleed him dry. DonaldJTrump.com. Go tonight. Give the president some money to fight this bullshit. This is going to destroy America. We're going to fight back at the ballot box. We're not going to give in. How does this end, Sean? Trump.
Mein Führer is in danger. You must come to his rescue. Come on, are you kidding me with this? Give Trump some money. That is a direct quote from Lindsey Graham. I thought the whole pitch, the whole reason that it was going to be cool for these folks to have a billionaire running was that he didn't need this stuff. Why are you donating to Donald Trump? Can't he buy, according to his word, several fleets of yachts? Why do you need J&Q Public's $30? Look at those eyes. I honestly wonder if he was just like having a breakdown in the green room. Maybe I should have done a little more homework and watched the whole Fox segment. I've just seen this clip and what played in various other places as well. So maybe he was weeping genuinely for Trump's plight. But I slightly suspect that what we're seeing right there is Salty Saturday, I'm allowed to wildly speculate, is a guy that helped do crime. And now his boss looks like he's going to be in trouble for it. And I was wondering, did Lindsey Graham flip on Trump already? Because he's the kind of guy who absolutely would flip on Trump. He already flipped regarding Trump when power changed hands and Trump was in office. He wasn't a never Trumper, but he was a no thank you Trumper for a while there. I was wondering if he flipped on Trump. But it doesn't look like he did. If he's crying over this, if he's desperately making appeals, if he's, I mean, he's smart enough to know how bad this looks, going on air and saying, give Trump money. And he's giving the pitch awkwardly, too. He's usually, I mean, he's not exactly a poet, but he's a little more eloquent than that. And I have to think Trump has him in some way. Maybe it is really just that he knows his constituents, the people that he needs to vote for him will only vote for him if he's shown to passionately support Trump. Maybe. But I don't know, man. Here's a guy being a wreck on air. And the guy that he is trying to get donations for is like the dumbest, most blatant criminal I have ever seen. I've known a fair degree of dumb criminals. You know, not none. Let's say that. Trump is easily the dumbest criminal ever. And that guy, according to multiple people in the government whose job it was to investigate these crimes, that guy, his accomplice. And for the first time Ever. Former president's getting indicted. Watch him keep on begging.
Trump wins in court, and he wins the election. That's how this ends.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to 34?
I should say regarding the tears, that audio that you're hearing, my understanding is it's not like Fox isn't broadcasting live and then like from a location with a crowd. They had to adjust Lindsey Graham's microphone because he was getting just brutally heckled as soon as he started talking there.
Counts on this in your view?
How do you do it? You take if you got a pile of crap and you chop it up 34 times, it's still a pile of crap. It's duplicitous charging.
Woof.
They're trying to smear the guy. They're trying to take cases that nobody else would take and resurrect them. This is literally legal voodoo. This is political persecution. This is a combination.
All right, I'm going to nitpick. It's literally legal voodoo, Lindsey Graham. It's literally legal voodoo, you say. What part of Haiti, what court in Haiti came up with legal voodoo? I'd be fascinated to see. Now, it's just weird that he's so desperate to grab it, clutch some straws. He got nothing. Got him making this face. And I don't feel bad for it. Because he betrayed us.
Of political hatred and selective prosecution on steroids. To those who are listening tonight, if you believe Donald Trump is being treated poorly and wrongly, stand up and help the man. Pray for our country.
I can't believe it. I just noticed this. I'll get rid of the box behind me there. Look at this. It has the Fox News logo. They have the chutzpah to put the word news there. And what do they do? What's their lower third? Trump indicted in Alvin Bragg witch hunt. So this supposed news channel has declared they've just decided that the investigation's a witch hunt. According to news on Fox, which claims to be a purveyor of facts, which claims to be a reliable reporting organization. It's not, but it's what they claim. This is a witch hunt. Nobody's even seen what the charges are. Nobody's seen any of the evidence. This is why Friday Peace Talks exist. Because just like Sam Cedar has a passion for debating libertarians, old pal Jake wants to get a hold of some people who are currently falling for that nonsense. And just ask questions until we understand what they are thinking. Because I do not know how you see that as a lower third and don't question yourself and your news organization. I'm assuming most of them don't understand the difference between what Rachel Maddow and Chris Hayes do and the news, like the actual news side, not the opinion shows, but the news side of MSNBC. Same thing for ABC, CNN, whatever. They don't understand the difference between an editorial, like, for example, what Foxy Dragon opened the show with, and a news article. Fundamentally, a news article is just it's like a research expedition. It is somebody who is not an expert in anything necessarily, except for vetting experts. And they go out and they find experts, and they get those experts to tell them what happened. Expert can be anything. It can, it can be the victim of a crime. It can be a witness who saw an event unfold. Oh, the balloon exploded, and thank God there was no one in it because it was on fire for a full 10 minutes after it crashed to the ground. Stuff like that. But opinion can say things like this. It can say things like the investigation into Donald Trump, who said he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, who, the grab him by the pee guy. An opinion show can say things like that. But what you can't do, and it can even air on the same network as the news, but what you cannot do is imply, even though this is, I realize it's just their logo. They're talking about the channel, Fox News. But what you cannot do is imply that what people are seeing is news when they see that. It's disgraceful, man. And again, I know Hannity's an opinion show. But when you pop that logo next to that lower third, it is an insult to the profession.
Pray for him. Go to DonaldJTrump.com and give money so he can defend themselves.
Why does he need it? Why does he need
This
it,
is a
Lady
moment
G?
in American history. This is the most irresponsible and dangerous decision by a prosecutor in the history of the country. He's opened up.
I love how dumb he looks. There is no correct frame for Lindsey Graham. He will always look dumb. Because he is dumb. Tell me in the comments what y'all think. Why is Lindsey weeping here? Honest to God. I'm just going to let him go for a bit. I want to just see how deep he can dig this hole, how low he can debase himself. But tell me in the comments what you think. I honestly don't know. I wonder if these tears are because he is just panicking.
Pandora's box against the presidency itself. Hunter Biden and Joe Biden could be prosecuted under this theory if they were on vacation in South Carolina and made a call to China. This is a danger to the presidency. This is turning the rule of law upside down to destroy a man, Donald J. Trump, who the left fears. Do not let them get away with this. Vote. Show up at the ballot box, DonaldJTrump.com. Give the man some money so he can fight.
All right. So we got Brian Tyler Cohen talking about this a little bit. I'm somewhat curious to hear what he has to say. We'll play it in a moment. But mostly curious what you guys think. Mars Falcon says, Sam is the Gen expert. Yes, indeed. I mean, he's a boomer, but yeah, absolutely. I hope that one day Sam Cedar sees that and gets just a little bit furious. Very interesting. I'm going to look at that conversation that Dave Spurlock and et al. Were having in a little bit. That looks interesting. Wicked Foxy Dragon says, the difference is that I cite all my sources when I talk facts. I back up all my opinions with facts. If I can't find facts, I don't write it. Fact that Graham is begging for money should make this off limits for news. Yes. Yeah. And you can, I'm of the belief. I respect how thorough you are. And that article you wrote was fantastic. But I'm of the belief that you can write an opinion piece with zero facts. But you have to be upfront about what you're presenting. And that's my beef with Fox News. Because there is no news there. I think they've made it clear that we require laws for this. We have seen now a societal harm, not just in our country. Frankly, any place Rupert Murdoch runs a corporation has these problems. White supremacists popping up, authoritarians, yada, yada, yada. He's just truly amongst the most evil human beings that has ever disgraced the earth. We need laws that regulate who can call themselves news. And I don't have a law I'm going to advocate for because I don't really know of one yet. Because at the same time, the freedom of the press, in my humble and incredibly biased opinion for obvious reasons, but it nonetheless is my opinion. I think it is more important for American freedom, maintaining it, than everything else combined. I think it is literally that important. All other rights we have combined, in my opinion, does not equal the power of the freedom of press. And yet, there's obvious abuse of it. We gotta tend to this. And the reasoning there is because without the freedom of the press, the government can do anything, and you don't know it. Meaning all those other rights could be taken away, and you wouldn't even necessarily be informed. Yeah, Dave Spurlock, what does Hunter Biden have to do with anything? Nothing. Not a damn thing. He's just the president's kid. Franny P, good to see you. Glad you're getting in early today. Delighted to see you, my friend. Lindsay looks scared out of his mind. Yeah. Mars Falcon says Lindsay is squirting tears because he is terrified of what Mima will think of him when Trump releases his dirt on Lindsay, even though he shot both knees bowing and scraping when convicted out of spite. Yeah. It's so, not only can I not prove it right now, I am not sure even if it happens that it will ever be proven. But let me just say these three true things together. And I won't draw a through line, but I'll be scandalous enough on this Salty Saturday to just let them sit there. Fact number 1. Donald Trump is getting indicted. Fact number 2. Roger Stone is a well-known blackmailer and also a well-known associate of Donald Trump. Fact number 3. Lindsey Graham was just weeping on television and begging people to give money to Donald Trump. I'm just going to put those 3 facts together. Let them sit there for a second and move on. Mars Falcon, but I did all you asked and more, Master Trump, cries Lindsay. Don't care, I'm petty, Trump. Yeah. Yep. It's more or less the way I think that's going to go. I think you're right. All right, what the hell? Let's see what BTC says. Christ Jesus, Brandon, I will take an apple peeler and just go hog wild on your face. But I'm sorry. Please play the clip, Brandon.
The concept of equal justice under the law has Republicans on the verge of tears. But remember, they're the party of law and order. So Lindsey Graham starts off here by saying, without any evidence to support his assertion, that the result of Trump being indicted is that he'll win the presidency again. Now, I've covered this argument before, but this is a common coping mechanism for Republicans whenever Trump is even moderately threatened with accountability. They always insist that him being treated like anyone else would be if they did the same thing is somehow going to make him even stronger than before.
It's only going to help Trump because it just cedes all the media turf to him.
The Democrats thought that this spectacle was going to help.
So they're really going to help President Trump get reelected with this, aren't they?
Well, no, we're going to take the House back, keep the Senate, and the president's going to win because of this BS.
These people
remember, the default way to treat anything said by these clowns is to assume the opposite is true. So, in my opinion, that means Lindsey Graham thinks they're going to lose the House, the Senate, and the White House. And in that, we are in agreement. I think that's probable.
Are wrong. Pelosi is leading, like I said, a witch hunt. It's ridiculous, and it's going to help the president
and like
in the
Fox
long run.
said.
And so Democrats have no choice but to march forward, despite the fact that it will inevitably destroy them, and they know it will.
There are few things that annoy me more than when somebody dares tell me what I am thinking. Tells anybody what they are thinking. Even in role playing, I don't like it when the DM says, and then you realize blah, 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 to get to a plot point. I'm like, don't tell me what my character realizes. I'll tell you if they do. I don't like it. It's obnoxious. And what annoys me when somebody does it on the TV is they know that you can't reach out and grab their fat neck. May we run across each other at a rest stop one day so I can call him a see you next Tuesday to his face. I don't like that.
Yeah, so I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Trump's impeachment was followed by Trump losing the presidency in historic fashion, as well as Democrats holding the House and gaining in the Senate. So I think it's fair to say it didn't end the way they predicted. And now Lindsey Graham and every other Republican are doing the same thing, telling us that a candidate for president being criminally indicted is actually a great thing. Here's an example of them trying to will this notion that bad news is somehow good news into existence.
I think if there's a mugshot, which there will be, you got to own it. That's got to be the poster. That's got to be, he is an OG, right? If they give me, I mean, he is a badass. If he's got a mugshot, you might as well go right into it.
Yeah, getting a mugshot is...
Okay. All of this coverage from Fox, they really just do one thing. They prepare their audience. Now, you know, I'm going to remove the chronology, the tense from this. They spin for the GOP. That's the job of Fox. Spin, spin, spin for the GOP. So GOP is going to do X, Y, or Z. Fox gets wind of it. Either they just read the tea leaves like everybody else, or they are informed of it, so on and so forth. And then they spin. Sometimes they spin beforehand. Sometimes they spin during. Sometimes they spin after. And yes, as Brian Tyler Cohen is saying, they're trying to make it seem like this is a good thing for Trump. But what he's not really talking about, and he's not obligated to, but I just want to shine a light on this particular, what the relevance of that is. They know how bad it is for Donald Trump. They know this isn't going to be suddenly tossed out. They know there is going to be months and months and months of this. And they're preparing their audience for the questions their audience are going to get from their family members and from their community, and stamping out questions their audience might dare come up with in their own skulls. Their dedication to spinning this like it's going to ultimately be good for Trump is just their way of preparing their audience for a brutal 2023. the remainder of it is just going to keep getting worse for Trump. I genuinely wonder if this guy is even going to be running in 2024. Look, a lot of his energy comes from a bottle, if the sniffles are an indicator. And he's, what is he, 78? He might not even have the physical ability to simultaneously be at all of these court appointments he is going to be if things go the way they look like they're going. To simultaneously be at all these court appointments he must attend. No choice. Next week, by the way, the civil rape trial, I believe, is starting. And also run for president. It's an exhausting thing to run for president. It nearly killed Bernie. Talks about it in It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. Nearly killed him. As impossible as it may seem, the last 7-8 years have been full of seemingly impossible things. And I note that often you don't have to hit a bully very hard before they go down, at least not as hard as you might have thought. I just want to get my licks in early, because a prediction's not going to be of much value very close to the event. But I'll say it now. A couple days after the first indictment, I have doubts. I have doubts that Trump will even be a significant candidate, not a significant political force, because even if the GOP tries to abandon him, like the other politicians try to just erase him, act like he never was a thing, and utterly move on because it just something happens and it's just too embarrassing. Bear in mind, we've been at this channel, this community has been advocating for Trump's indictment based off of just what was publicly known. Can you imagine the kind of we're going to see when the investigators present their cases in court? Bonnie Willis is going to eat them up. I can't fathom what she knows and what we're going to learn. We'll let Brian Tyler Cohen go for a while.
Actually a great thing. Got it. Lindsey Graham then goes on to say that the charges against Trump are, quote, a pile of crap, and the fact that he's being charged with 34 criminal counts is just prosecutors in the grand jury chopping it up 34 times. Except one small problem. Lindsey Graham has no clue what Trump has been charged with yet. None of us do. He's telling people not to believe the charges when the charges aren't even public. Republicans aren't even pretending to keep an open mind here or look at the case on its merits. Trump could have been charged with murdering someone, and still these Republicans would just plug up their ears and go, la 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 la. Lindsey Graham then claims that this is a case that no one else would take. Yeah, I wonder why the Justice Department, then run by Bill Barr, decided against prosecuting Bill Barr's boss, one of the world's great mysteries. I mean, seriously, are we really going to pretend that Trump's own DOJ refusing to prosecute Trump is some exculpatory evidence for Trump here? From the Mueller report to January 6th, Trump's DOJ existed to defend not the rule of law, but Donald Trump himself. Maybe Lindsey Graham should be reminded of that. And of course, Graham ends this pathetic
nitpicking and compliments coming in simultaneously. Nitpicking. I effing hate that track that plays on Brian Tyler Cohen's videos. Like, I wish he wasn't such a sharp guy, so I didn't feel like I wanted to play these videos so often. Because I can't stand that track. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I do listen to him a lot, like, because I think he's sharp. But I feel like I've heard that, like, twice was enough. And I've heard it like 30 times. Okay, I just realized this is from a guy that opens and closes his show with the same song nearly every time. Moving on, here's the compliment. He is going to be like the best old man. I hope he stays in media for another 50 years. Because when he gets crotchety, when he taps into that like grandfather from Brooklyn not putting up with your nonsense, it's the best. Let's see if we can hear it.
I mean, seriously, are we really going to pretend that Trump's own DOJ refusing to prosecute Trump is some exculpatory evidence for Trump here? From the Mueller report to January 6th, Trump's DOJ existed to defend not the rule of law, but Donald Trump himself. Maybe Lindsey Graham should be reminded of that. And of course, Graham ends this pathetic rant the way he started.
All right, that was good, but come on, give me that Graham
with
energy.
Murdering someone, and still these Republicans would just plug up their ears and go la 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 la. Lindsey Graham then claims that this is a case that no one else would take. Yeah, I wonder why the Justice Department, then run by Bill Barr, decided against prosecuting Bill Barr's boss, one of the world's great mysteries. I mean, seriously, are we really?
Oh, you bent the fender on the car. Yeah. Well, I wonder how that happened. You're driving around in the ice. You're going too fast for the neighborhood. Oh, wow, such a mystery how that could happen that you bent the fender on the car. You're aging your grandfather here. He's going to make a hell of an old man. And as a young buck, he's all right, too.
The GOP, their base is just a well of untapped funds and nothing more. But what's crazy about this is that this unhinged rant from Lindsey Graham then got even more unhinged when he took to Twitter to then call on Donald Trump to commit more crimes and even start assaulting police officers.
Oh, I did not. I was completely unaware of this part. All right, interesting. What did Lindsey do?
How can President Trump avoid prosecution in New York? On the way to the DA's office on Tuesday, Trump should smash some windows, rob a few shops, and punch a cop.
Okay, I realize I'm just getting hit with waves here. So he's simultaneously, yeah. I can't tell if no, that's not a January 6th thing. So he's going off the right-wing narrative of what they say the Black Lives Matters protests were. I was there for many of them. At least in the vast majority of them, there were no such things. Do you really think, Lindsey Graham, that it's a good idea to make light of that stuff, given your involvement with a coup d'état, but 2 years prior? You think that's a good idea? That tweet, if it's real, it appears to be, that is likely to be evidence in a court of law soon. Unbelievable.
He would be released immediately. And of course, this desperate whataboutism is a reference to the George Floyd protests, but it's probably not a great idea to suggest resorting to violence, even sarcastically, to the guy who is literally facing indictment for inciting a murderous mob to descend upon the seat of government. Just, for starters. And while we're on the topic of Lindsey Graham's tweets, I really think that 2023 Lindsey Graham might benefit from having met 2016 Lindsey Graham, who'd previously taken to Twitter to write, "If we nominate Trump, we will get destroyed, and we will deserve it." And I believe the modern day phrasing of that is fuck around, find out. And well, the Republican Party's doing a lot of finding out lately. And of course, speaking of finding out.
Oh, got him. Jesus, Brian Tyler Cohen. Good Lord.
Let's also not forget that Lindsey Graham himself was a witness in the Fulton County, Georgia investigation into Trump's efforts to steal the election, where Graham also participated in the effort by calling Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. So maybe there's more than one reason why Lindsey Graham seems so personally distraught by the walls closing in on Trump. He may be realizing that there's a lot at stake for him, too, if prosecutors begin to prove that even top politicians aren't above the law.
Okay. Folks, it ain't just, looks like it ain't just this old chunk of coal. We got Brian Tyler Cohen apparently arriving at the same conclusion.
absolute meltdown from Republicans on this isn't just their cynical desire for Trump to be protected at all costs. It's also the realization that if the dam breaks on this one case, there may be a new precedent to go after a lot of other criminal politicians who thought they could get away with doing things that no one else would be able to get away with. It's
Damn it, now I
almost
even
as
like
if
the
running your
jam.
political party like an organized crime ring wasn't such a great idea after all. But I'm sure you'll see plenty more panic from these Republican politicians and Republican media
I hate that it's a good beat, too. Son of a... Anyway.
figures. Recognize, though, that that's only coming from a place of fear, because nothing scares powerful criminals more than the realization that they, too, can be held accountable for their own actions. Before
No. So, Lindsey Graham, huh? He's not doing so hot. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. Here it is. 1 second. Just one little moment. Here we are. It's the world's tiniest violin. I don't give a... Dude deserves everything that's coming his way. Assuming that I am correct in what is coming his way, which is a pair of handcuffs and a cellmate named Psycho Jim. Delightful. All right, viewer's choice again. We got Marjorie Taylor. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to unviewer's choices. Because I just realized that I want to pair this up with Foxy Dragon's article. And it's going to be hard to edit if I got to search for it. Let's look at Marjorie Taylor Greene discussing, well, hell. And maybe I won't even do that, because I am now not sure which Marjorie Taylor Greene clip this is. She appears twice in today's show. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene crushed by Democratic rising star. Let's find out. The point of Salty Saturday for a lot of this is just to blind watch and have fun. Let's do it. So we're going to watch a MTG clip in a moment. I'm going to read us some comments, though. Jake, that sounded like a Bernie Sanders impersonation. Yeah. Basically, now when I do Guy from Brooklyn, it just turns into Bernie pretty much immediately. Play Devil went down to Georgia, says Mars Falcon. I'll try. Laura says, after Velshi said his piece about mostly peaceful protests, I started looking at national, local news around the country. They would show pictures of fires while the announcer said there was no fire. God damn it. Dave Spurlock says, let's not look at MTG. You make my editing harder. I'm a lazy man, Dave. But in matters of taste, the customer is indeed always right. Fair enough. We're going to save MTG then for a little bit later in the show. What we are instead going to do is let you guys choose between Trump supporter scrambles to defend his stance on gun control in an interview, Ukraine strikes deep into Russian-held territory of Ukraine, for the record, or Mehdi debates an ex-Iraq hawk on the Iraq war. I still cannot let that go, because they got somebody shooting at my brother. Also, a bunch of people were killed in our name, so that's something I do want to address at one point. So, Mehdi debates, Trump supporter scrambles, or Ukraine strikes deep. You guys, let me know what you want to look at. Dave Spurlock says, I meant I'd rather not look at her. Do what you want. Yeah, we'll do it in a bit. I'm overplaying how much work it is to actually find these things. It just requires the tiniest bit of responsibility with note taking, which I suppose I can do. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look at the Trump supporter scrambling. I saw the first question, and it was so awkward. I had to do that thing with season 1 of The Office where I just get up and walk away for a second and go, no. This is gonna be hard to watch, but in a fun way. Let's have a look at Rebel HQ. They're talking about the problem we see with so many MAGA folks. And I want to use this as an opportunity for us to talk about, and by the way, share techniques if you got them, to talk about what to do when someone asks you about something you believe and you don't have an answer. Keep it in your mind as you watch this. Try, foul though the person may be, try to empathize with this person and imagine if for some reason you were in their shoes at the critical moment, at the moment they are looking dumbest. What would you do instead to rescue the situation? It is a difficult exercise, but it's incredibly useful. Have a look.
Which do you think are more dangerous, drag shows or guns to children?
Drag shows.
Drag shows. How many people do you think have been killed at a drag show?
I don't know, but the long-term effects are detrimental.
How many people do you think die every year from guns?
Ooh. I have no idea.
48,000.
48,000? Okay. Well, there's probably...
So clearly, there's probably 100,000 from that. Okay.
100,000 die from drag shows.
This guy could have said any number. He could have said 48 million. He could have said 48 billion, more humans that exist. And this dude in the ultra MAGA shirt would have said a higher number. And he's not hiding that. He's not hiding that. He's just clearly being obnoxious to make a point of being obnoxious. But he's also revealing that he doesn't really care about the issue. He says probably more die from drag shows.
The Good Liars talked with this Trump supporter at the rally in Waco, Texas, and it's clear that this person just came up with stats out of nowhere. But I want to highlight a stray in this MAGA man's especially stupid bad take.
Interesting. Let's listen.
He's wearing a Baylor University satchel. Not a good endorsement for them. Now, usually I would dismiss someone like this, but based on recent developments, you never know how much influence a person may have. This purveyor of interesting stats on guns and drag shows could be behind a nameless, faceless Twitter account where they post nonsense to their countless amount of followers who hang on their every single character.
That seems odd. Seems like we would have... All right.
Don't take them lightly. For example, it was recently revealed that the Twitter...
No, that's not the... No, come on.
...account with over 1.6 million followers by the name of Cat's Herd 2 is being ran by Philip Lamar Buchanan out of Florida.
Okay, let me take that back. I feel like we would have heard about it. I mean, that's not in and of itself disqualifying. Oh, shit. I've paused that at a terrible moment. This man is not deserving of my petty ire. I feel like, I mean, I hate to say this sentence, but Cat Turd is a big influencer. And if he's saying this guy is also being charged with a crime, let's just listen.
Cat's Herd 2 is being ran by Philip Lamar Buchanan out of Florida. So, If you don't know who Cats Hurt 2 is, this account has been mentioned by conservative media, Saturday Night Live, is beloved by Elon Musk, and former President Donald Trump even used his Twitter poll as proof in his truth that voters prefer 45 over DeSantis in the 2024 Republican primary. Well, on June 23, 2021, just past midnight, Franklin, North Carolina Police Department took a man who was 58 years old at the time into custody after he fired rounds from a hunting rifle at a Walmart truck being unloaded by employees. He was arrested and held in Macon County Detention Center.
Okay, I will say, if any influencer was going to do this, I would picture that. But still, it's a weird, not where I thought this was going.
On a $5,000 secured bond. Franklin officers and deputies were dispatched to the back of that Walmart where an active shooter incident was unfolding. As Franklin officers and Macon County Sheriff's deputies responded to the scene, the suspect fled and a vehicle chase ensued. Macon County deputies were able to stage and deploy stop sticks, which were engaged by the suspect's vehicle and caused it to stop. That man's name was Philip L. Buchanan. That L stands for Lawrence and loser. Now, are these two Philip L. Buchanans one and the same? No. That's how misinformation and disinformation starts. I'm not going to show any pictures that are purportedly him, just in case any of this is wrong, but everything I mentioned is publicly available
Yeah, he got me. Shit.
information. With that said, when the likes of Cats Hurt 2 is saying leftists have a victim mentality, the man behind the curtain is also playing victim when he faces consequences. The point is, when Cats Hurt 2
Ooh, little Binder showing up. Nice.
comes out of the shadows and answers questions, I would be surprised if they provide facts, stats, and figures to back up their claims. I wouldn't be shocked if behind this public persona was really someone who has no idea of what they're talking about and will make up numbers as they go along. We've seen it before. Watch the logic of the cell phone and charger metaphor fall apart when Congresswoman Lauren Boebert was talking about free speech.
Yeah, definitely went in a direction I was not thinking it was going to go. It was an interesting point, though. Fair enough. All right. So the beginning still holds with the premise. You saw a person not having the facts on hand. That's what it comes down to. Person said, the person interviewing them said, do you know how many people a year die from gun deaths? Clearly, the person being interviewed, who after that I don't even know who the person being interviewed was, but clearly they didn't know. And clearly they had no idea how many people a year died from seeing a drag show, I think it was. I could answer that. I do happen to have that figure right here. It is 0. None. Nobody dies from seeing a drag show unless a right-wing lunatic shoots them. So, but what do you do? Let's say it's something you care about. Let's say it's gerrymandered districts, and somebody comes up to you and says, do you know how many complaints are received by districts that are decided about the district lines in districts that are decided by by a commission rather than the legislator who were appointed by the people? You just get from the tone, oh, this seems like an argument that's going to destroy one of the beliefs that I held. I don't want to look foolish. I'll tell you what I would do in that situation. Let's have a look and see if y'all got something here. Death is a pretty long-term effect. Yes, indeed. Just some guy says hit the like button. That's just some guy after my own heart. Yes, please do hit that like button. Patrick Thibodeau says Jeff Wiggins is awesome. Good call, Jake. Yeah, I really like Jeff Wiggins. He's chill and fun. Mars Falcon, they don't care. They will goose step every one of us into the furnace. Yep. I get trying to communicate with them, but keep those eyes wide open and be prepared to literally fight fascism. It is here. Yes. Correct. in your soul, prepare for that. And I think simply having the attitude to prepare for it might avoid it. But being able to empathize with someone does not necessarily mean you are going to choose to be forgiving to that person or kind to that person. It often leads to that. But what it really does is allows you to strategize. This is a perfect example. We so often see the other side because MAGA falls into this trap over and over and over and over again. And the trap is simply asking somebody for information, the interviewer asking somebody for information they know damn well they don't have. And the purpose is to make them look foolish. That's what they're trying to accomplish there. It's what the good liars do. That's what all of these kind of gag interviewers do, where they're asking legitimate questions, but they're asking it to people that they know aren't going to have an answer. But that technique is also used, often dishonestly, and it's against people who do have genuine beliefs and are, frankly, in my opinion, in the right about things. And yet they end up looking foolish when they get caught by this in an interview. Because that hypothetical question I asked you, that was the kind of thing you'll hear. That's where they bring up an irrelevant number. In that interview, it was a perfectly relevant statistic. He's making the broad claim here. He's saying, look, you're saying these drag shows are dangerous, while simultaneously supporting the ability, as Foxy Dragon pointed out in her opinion piece, by the way, link in the description, check it out. They are supporting keeping the ability for murderers to mass murder our children. So those were relevant statistics. But you will get asked irrelevant statistics, and there it is. When you get asked something, you're being interviewed about something you believe in, and you're getting asked questions and you don't have the answers to them. Remind yourself why you believe in the thing you believe in. Presumably, you have a reason. Not your job to memorize every fact under the sun. In fact, if we're going to be totally fair, it wasn't that interviewee's job to memorize every fact under the sun. It wasn't. He could have said, I don't know, to both of those questions. He could have just said, I don't know. However, the reason those gag interviews work so well against MAGA is because they don't really have core beliefs. They're not based in fact. They are based in the ranting of a Fox News madman at best, an OAN madman, equally likely a 4chan, an 8chan madman, even more equally likely. So they don't have core beliefs. They didn't see a fact that swayed them. They saw propaganda, and they know they can't rely on that. They're not confident, in other words. They're not confident in what they believe. And so they worry that if they demonstrate their ignorance, that everything falls apart. Just remember this. When you get asked about what you believe, first answer for yourself why you believe it. Then, if you don't have the answer, don't lie. And honestly, listen to what the interviewer, it doesn't even have to be a television interviewer, it could be your cousin. It's any situation where you're being asked about politics and things you believe in politics and you don't have all of the answers, which is going to be most times, actually. Unless you're preparing a presentation for a board or something, there's going to be some things you don't know. Just be honest about it. It's that easy. If the person says, but you see, you believe X, and I just showed you that Y accomplishes more of the thing. You can acknowledge what they've said. You don't even necessarily have to acknowledge that what they said is true, especially if it seems like it's coming from a dishonest place. But understand that it's not necessarily the whole story. And something got you to that core belief that is being questioned. Look back on what got you there. Check if it still holds up, given the light of these new facts that you've been presented. If you don't trust the person, then you don't have to commit to saying, okay, fine, I'll believe what you say until later. Just rely on that first thing that got you believing that thing. If it still holds true, and present that as your counterpoint to it. Hopefully, what will also happen is then you will also go examine your beliefs with the new knowledge you've been given. But the worst thing you can do is what that guy did. Even though he was doing it kind of as a joke, the worst thing you can do is try to make something up on the spot. It's even if it's successful and you successfully trick somebody into believing that you knew whatever thing you didn't really know. The problem is that you will then yourself not learn anything. And you'll be doing both of you a disservice. I really, really want to see Mehdi Hassan knock this mother effer's head in. He had a Mars Falcon. That's me 90% of the time. I'm going to read Foxy Dragon and Mars Falcon's comments. Foxy Dragon says, no, he shouldn't have had to memorize all the facts, but they should at least have some sort of reason for their opinion, more than just Trump told me so. Exactly. And they don't. And they're self-conscious about that, and that's what makes for the hilarious interviews. Just remember, if your own beliefs are sincere, just explain why you sincerely believe the thing. And welcome new information. I want to see Mehdi Hassan whip this guy who was campaigning for us to go to war, for a war that lasted 20 years. And before I rag on the guest too terribly hard, I do remember the United States in 2003, and most people were out for blood. But Mehdi Hassan has one of them on his show, and he does one hell of a job holding them to account and asking the question. He's not really going after the guest. Asking them the question, should we hold people accountable for this yet? In my life, one of my stretch goals, let's call it, is to see George W. Bush in a prison cell for the murders, the mass murder he committed. Mehdi's going to help, it looks like.
Earlier this month, the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin for his role in the alleged abduction of Ukrainian children. While these represent the first official charges, it is far from the only war crime that Putin could and should be indicted for. I'm thinking about Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, the invasion itself. Notably, these charges against Putin came the same week as the 20-year anniversary of America's illegal invasion of Iraq, which is interesting.
I hope that is not a coincidence. I hope that is a message from the rest of the world. Just like we have pretended to swoop in and help other countries, I genuinely hope we get some political pressure from around the world to get a hold of ourselves, for God's sake. Join us allies And I hope that was not a coincidence.
And kind of relevant because in a speech Vladimir Putin gave on the eve of his own illegal invasion, he pointed to, quote, the invasion of Iraq without any legal grounds. They used the pretext of allegedly reliable information available in the United States about the presence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and all of that was a fake and a sham. Now, put aside Putin's bad faith and self-serving invocation of the Iraq war, the question still remains. If Putin should be prosecuted for his war crimes, then why shouldn't Bush as well? I posed this question to former US Ambassador Michael McFaul on the 11th hour on MSNBC last week. Hold on, Vladimir Putin rightly, there's a case against him, gets an arrest warrant for his illegal invasion of Ukraine, and yet George W. Bush is still swanning around painting paintings, swapping cough drops with Michelle Obama. What about that double standard?
I think the war in Europe today is categorically different. This is a war of imperialism. It's a war of annexation, and I think it puts it in a different category.
That exchange caught the attention of conservative writer and author Tom Nichols of The Atlantic. He took exception to what he felt was an unfair comparison between Ukraine and Iraq, tweeting, quote, the Russians are invading Ukraine to overthrow a democratic government and absorb Ukraine into a Russian empire. The allied coalition in Iraq deposed a tyrant who violated a ceasefire and then did everything it could to restore Iraq as an independent state. To which I replied, the question, Tom, was about Bush and Putin. You can dress up Iraq as a liberal intervention all you like, but Bush violated international law, national sovereignty, and killed plus tortured a whole bunch of innocent people. Of course, it spiraled from there, as so many Twitter spats do. But in my defense...
Okay, I have to chime in. I was trying to be good. For the record, it is no different. No different. They gave different arbitrary reasons, but because the reasons were arbitrary, they don't matter. Bush had a more plausible excuse? We had just been attacked, sure. Not by Iraq. Doesn't matter how much we hated a country. They didn't attack us. It was no different. If we had a less powerful military and Iraq had a more powerful military, then it would just be what we're seeing now. In fact, some of the weapons being used are likely the very same. It's no different is the correct answer. Mehdi Hassan. But I'm not picking on Mehdi. I'm just saying it's no different.
I am far from the only one who thinks about Iraq when Ukraine comes up. Listen to this guy.
The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine.
It was no different.
Iraq, too. Anyway.
Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Who the is laughing at that guy? Laughing with him. Throw a shoe. That's the only correct thing to do when you see George W. Bush speaking. Throw a shoe and call the cops.
That was, how does the saying go, the Freudian slip to end all Freudian slips. So, I invited Tom Nichols to continue our Twitter beef, this time on TV, where the discourse is famously much more cordial. He joins me now. Tom was formerly a professor for the U.S. Naval War College and is currently staff writer for The Atlantic. He wrote this piece on the 20-year anniversary, acknowledging that he would no longer call Iraq a just war today, as he had at the time. Nevertheless, he still takes issue with my Ukraine-Iraq comparison, which we'll get into now. Tom, as always, thank you for coming on the show. The 20th anniversary of George Bush's illegal invasion of Iraq.
This is the sort of interview I salivate thinking about being able to get one day, because he seems, based on the intro Mehdi just gave him, he seems like he is going to give a spirited debate. And even though I'm definitely going to disagree with him, I do appreciate a good argument. Let's hear him out.
Almost exactly coincided with that arrest warrant issued by the ICC for Vladimir Putin over Ukraine. So why is it wrong? Why is it invidious and inaccurate, as you say, to compare Ukraine with Iraq, to compare Vladimir Putin's crimes with George Bush's, as so many people around the world have been doing in recent days?
Well, Mady, the way you phrase that is a classic and literal example of begging the question, because you've started with Bush's illegal invasion of Iraq. We're talking about an invasion that was accompanied by 3 other military powers and supported by 30 countries, including important American allies in Europe.
Based on a lie. That lie is what made it illegal. And saying that we were joined by others doesn't forgive it. It makes it much, much worse, because now add the deaths of everyone who joined us to George W. Bush's toll. Add the expense of the gear they sent. Really, we were the only... No, we weren't the only boots on the ground, actually. We had Canadians there. We had British there. Add anybody who got involved. Not to the side of the scale that balances towards innocent. Add that to the charges. Please and thank you.
And other countries around the world. There's a difference. I mean, international law, I don't want us to devolve into what UN Security Council resolutions mean, but the Russians and the French and the Brits and the Americans disagreed about what Resolution 1441 really meant. That the Americans and the Brits said serious consequences mean serious consequences. It means military consequences, as well as the giant raft of UN security resolutions that had been there for 12 years, including violating a ceasefire. If you violate a ceasefire and hostilities break out again, you don't get to claim that it's an illegal war. The thing I really took issue with here is I think it's not that it's an insult to Bush and the Americans. I mean, as you saw in my piece, I mean, I thought that deposing Saddam, even in the 1990s, on humanitarian grounds, particularly attempted genocide, was a just cause. But the way the Americans and their allies executed this was a complete fiasco. And I don't deny that now. Yeah. But I think by comparing them, you're letting Putin off the hook. You're simply drawing too easy a comparison.
He's got a point. He has got a point. I mean, I'll just say it. He's right. When we compare these things and we say Vladimir Putin deserves punishment, we do let him off the hook. Unless, in the comparison, we also say that our guy deserves the same punishment. Let me tell you a little secret. That son of a bitch does deserve the same punishment. Without question. Every day that man is free is an insult to the families of 7,000 U.S. service members, of 8,000 contractors who died, and the entire country of Iraq. There is no justice in the world until he's in prison. We just made a huge stride towards that. I swear to you, there are times when I am thankful for Donald Trump because he was such an obnoxious criminal that we could not ignore him anymore. We could not ignore the corruption because he shined a light on it. He did what he said he would do. He exposed the corruption in Washington by being the most corrupt human being ever and being so bad at it. And now, as a result of that, we've shown you can indeed indict a former president. And I know another former president that deserves an indictment. So you're right. You're right, sir. It lets Putin off the hook if we compare those two without saying that George W. Bush deserves the same punishment. He certainly does. Great point.
To someone who did not actually approach the international community, did not have other allies, did not.
It's Saturday. I'm allowed to be salty.
Not make a case at the United Nations, did none of those things, and just said, Ukraine isn't a real place. These people will either accept my rule or die. And by comparing that to Iraq, I just think you're letting.
Mehdi Hassan, the man, my favorite guy on TV, is going to do this. I want a piece. George W. Bush also said, accept my rule or die. But you don't think Putin was going to put somebody else in charge of Ukraine? He was. Yeah, he would put a puppet in. Just like with Belarus. Yeah, he'd put a puppet in. That's what we tried to do. We put in a government that we used force to invade another country, take it over, and then install a government that we chose. A bunch of foreigners with guns chose. A bunch of invaders chose. This was done in my name, in your name, your parents' name. Everybody who is a citizen of the United States, it was done in our name because our government did it. And we let it happen. Innocent times. The blame is not on the conned, which was us in this case, but on the con man, George W. Bush. Ooh, it feels so freaking good to see stuff like this on TV now. This was unheard of even 10 years ago. Absolutely unheard of. Hell, 5 years ago, in the middle of the Trump nightmare, it was unheard of to talk about stuff like this. And here it is. Again, we have another clip where on national television we're having these conversations. Let's let Mehdi go uninterrupted. By the way, I'm looking at some of your comments, and we're going to have a fun comment section after this.
Putin off too easily.
So it's a good point you make. It's wrong, but it's a good point because I think the person who's letting people off the hook is you. I've spent the last year on this show condemning Vladimir Putin from the very beginning and slamming people on the left and right who give him a pass. If anyone's being let off the hook, it's George W. Bush. The entire world is condemning Putin.
Mehdi Hassan. Oh, we need a name for him
right now. It's Bush who, as I pointed out elsewhere, swapping cough drops, painting.
Frankie Fast Hands. Mehdi Hassan just earned Frankie Fast Hands. Well, damn done.
Things getting rehabilitated. And I worry about this line from you that you can't compare the two because one is worse or one was done differently. And the analogy I keep thinking of, Tom, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe and Bob both commit a murder. Bob's murder is far more brutal and violent than Joe's murder. So Tom Nichols comes along and says, well, we should only prosecute Bob's murder, not Joe. Don't compare Joe's murder to Bob's. No, both are murders, both are violations of law. We can argue about which one's worse, but both deserve to be held to account.
Woo!
Well, in the words of Ronald Reagan, matey, there you go again, because you're saying both are murders. I would argue that one of them is not a war crime. An ill-advised war, yes. An incompetently executed war, absolutely. But the idea that Bush said, I know that this cause is completely wrong. I know that these facts are wrong.
It's just going to be fun to see if it pans out. This is why I like when we get to do these dry watches, get to take some risks. Is Mehdi Hassan going to bring up the key point, which is that Bush lied, about the intel he had when in fact he had intel telling him the exact opposite? And is he going to mention the fact that when Bush was governor, he said that his father let Iraq go and that he would not do that if he got the opportunity, that he would find an excuse and take over Iraq and get rid of Saddam? Is Mehdi going to say that? Put your bets down now, folks. This is Mehdi Mullah Hassan. I think he's going to nail him with this, and I think he's going to do it in the response to this question. Let's find out.
I'm going to do it for, profit or personal revenge or whatever it is. Multiple investigations over 20 years and interviews with the people who were involved in the decision to go into this war just don't show that. And so you keep coming back to this is a war crime because you've defined it as a war crime, but the international community has not. But I think Bush has taken plenty of arrows over 20 years, as he should. But I think part of the problem is that it just galls you that he hasn't been treated in the same category as Putin.
Oh, it does.
And while I understand
100%,
that, it matters.
100% it galls me. 100% it galls me. And it's funny that you should mention. It's funny that you should mention Reagan. Another day we'll get you back on to talk about his war crimes in places like Guatemala and elsewhere. But so let's stick with Bush because you keep saying, oh, the international community. Look, Tom, you're a very smart man. You're a former professor at the Naval College. I believe you're a 5-time Jeopardy champion. But last time I checked, you have 0 legal qualifications. Most international lawyers who have commented on Iraq around the world, including the UN Secretary General at the time, Kofi Annan, said it was an illegal war. And I just want to pull up UN Resolution 1441 because you keep bringing up the UN. Let's just talk about UN Resolution 1441. Passed in November 2002, 4 months before the invasion. For our viewers, let's remind them, you point out rightly it gave Iraq one final opportunity, warned of serious consequences, but it also said the Security Council should remain seized of the matter. It didn't give permission to Bush and Blair to make war on Iraq. It didn't use the phrase all necessary means. And you don't have to take my word for it. I just want you to listen to the US and UK ambassadors at the UN at the time, the 2 guys who helped draft it. Have a listen.
This resolution contains no hidden triggers and no automaticity with respect to the use of force.
There is no automaticity in this resolution. If there is a further Iraqi breach of its disarmament obligations, the matter will return to the Council for discussion as required in operative paragraph 12.
No automaticity, no hidden triggers. We promised to come back to the Security Council, but they didn't. The majority of the Security Council rejected their view of 1441, and Kofi Annan called it an illegal war. A Dutch government inquiry called it an illegal war. The top law lords in the UK called it an illegal war, and yet George Bush has never been held legally to account for it.
Well, first, I'll say, since we were appealing to authority here and that I have no legal bona fides, I will say I did write a whole book about this back in 2008. And my big concern then as now is that the United States and other nations have now opened the door to preventive war as a means of statecraft, which I think is incredibly dangerous. And I think something that we don't talk enough about. But in terms of indicting George Bush, if someone wants to take it before the World Court and indict George Bush, they should, then make the case, because I think what happened at the UN, and I agree with you, there was no automaticity. On the other hand, the Security Council had an understanding within itself that we would have a fair hearing on this if Iraq decided one more time not to comply. And
I lost the bet. He didn't answer. He didn't hit him with the Governor Bush quotes in that response. Although it's interesting that they're going this route. The key issue here is this is very useful, because at some point the cult with a Q is going to be defeated. And at some point, let's say it's the best case scenario, which I happen to think is likely, and Democrats take on old school GOP people, and we split into, amongst the Democrats, 2 parties, and then there's the progressives and the Democrats are the new conservatives. Let's say that happens. The people who are going to replace Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump and those types, Kevin McCarthy, they're going to sound like this. But look at what he's doing. It's just a slicker, more subtle, more sophisticated version of the exact same thing. This is baseball, MAGA's T-ball. MAGA is great for learning how the swindle works. And that's what it looks like when it's done properly, Christ. So first he's like, hey, it wasn't a crime. It wasn't the same thing. They didn't. Mehdi says, well, it was the same thing. And we're splitting hairs over irrelevant details. Then he says, it wasn't illegal, though. That's where you're wrong, Mehdi. And he says, well, we didn't have he said, this fella says, Tom Nichols says, a bunch of people signed on with us. Mehdi points out, no, not really, not genuinely. Well, now he's once again moving those goalposts. Let's use his words.
To preventive war as a means of statecraft, which I think is incredibly dangerous, and I think something that we don't talk enough about. But in terms of indicting George Bush, if someone wants to take it before the World Court and indict George Bush, they should, then make the case.
That is the purpose of this interview. Now he's saying, well, if he was that bad, then somebody should say something, but nobody said anything. And the whole point of this interview is that Mehdi Hasan is saying somebody should say something. We should, in fact, put this guy in front of the World Court. That's why this man's here. And he's on the ropes, by the way, in my opinion. But he was never going to beat Mehdi. Come on.
Because I think what happened at the UN, and I agree with you, there was no automaticity. On the other hand, the Security Council had an understanding within itself that we would have a fair hearing on this if Iraq decided one more time not to comply. And I would argue that with the exception of China, who basically backed out of this and said, Saddam's bringing this on himself. We don't want any part of it. We're not really going to participate in this debate. The French and the Russians said, bring it back to the Security Council because you know that we will never agree to this. And the Brits and the Americans said, we'll bring it back to the Security Council because you know we're going to go after him once he defaults once again.
That doesn't make it legal. That's great, but that doesn't make it legal. An unprovoked war of aggression against a sovereign country is what the Nuremberg Tribunal called the supreme crime. By the way, Tom, Richard Clarke, who's not a sandal-wearing lefty, former White House counterterrorism czar on 9/11. He's one of those people who says war crimes were committed. He's begged the question, to use your phrase. Let's talk about war crimes, Tom. Let's not talk in abstract terms, because something else you and I argued about on Twitter. I mentioned the city of Fallujah because you said to me on Twitter that one of the key differences between Putin in Ukraine and Bush in Iraq is that the Russians leveled and laid waste to Ukrainian cities like Mariupol, which they have. And yet in the siege of Fallujah in November 2004, 10,000 homes were destroyed, around another 10,000 damaged, dozens of mosques flattened, hundreds of civilians killed, water and electricity to the city cut off by U.S. forces, a largely indiscriminate shoot-to-kill policy by U.S. Marines, especially at night, the Red Cross blocked from getting in, Iraqi men blocked from getting out, the use of cluster bombs, depleted uranium, white phosphorus on that city, and a documented increase in birth defects, childhood cancers in and around Fallujah in the years since. Those are not Ukraine-level war crimes in your view? Nothing to see here?
We're going to get to that guy's pattern in a second. I want to read some of your comments. I need a palate cleanser. Christ. Leon Chevalier says, I remember a 1 million-person march in the UK against the Iraq War. I remember that too. And I remember, if you're from the UK, thank you. Genuinely. That gave me hope for the world at a point in my life. Just knowing that had happened, knowing that there was that many people out there who gave a damn. It was genuinely helped a lot of us in this country stay sane. Oh, Leon, you are British. All right. Well, thank you for that. And T also, although that might be China. I remember a million-person. Yep. Patrick Thibodeau says HW was embarrassed, and W saw that as a chance to finally win the approval of his father. I don't think that worked out well for him. I don't think it did either. Dana Carvey should have gone through with it. I salute those that marched. We tried here in the States, too. Our owners don't care. There was money to make, resources to nab, and puppets to install, Leon Chevalier. That's from Mars Falcon. Yeah. Yeah, at the time, there was really just mass hysteria. I cannot stress enough how shocking 9/11 was. And hey, here's Mars Falcon with some facts. Speaking of, 17 of 19 9/11 terrorists came from Saudi Arabia. Even that was not an excuse to attack the whole country because some people from a place did it. Iraq was secular. No discernible terrorism there. Yeah. And, on the scale of dictators, Saddam Hussein, I'm not going to run defense for him. He was a monster. Yeah. But it was paper thin, our excuse for entering. We basically, I don't think there was anything that would have stopped once 9/11 happened, like that day. It wouldn't have mattered what else we discovered. We were going to invade Iraq, from my perspective. That W piece, says Patrick Thibodeau, would have been a chef's kiss if he wasn't talking about a war crime. Yeah. I love the way Mehdi frames it with facts. 20th anniversary of the illegal invasion of Iraq. Yep. All right, this was something I read from Mars Falcon earlier. I really wanted to use because it's great. Reframing, or rather translating what Tom Nichols said. It ain't a crime if we use soft power to force others into committing it with us, says Tom Nichols, right-wing thought leader. Exactly. We often think that might makes right in the U.S. because we are told that. And I'm not sure what country everyone's from, but I'm just telling you from the U.S. perspective. We are the logic we're supposed to pick up, the sort of thing we're supposed to intuit is that whatever we're doing is right because we're the best country in the world. And if we weren't the best country in the world, we couldn't get away with the things we're doing. And also, the things we're doing are necessary because they make us the best country in the world. And it's this circular back-padding logic, which is just designed to make sure we never question our rulers to the point where we have now an oligarchic class, which is every bit as powerful as the royalty was back in the day. Good night, Wicked Foxy Dragon, and thank you for the wonderful article. She did a heck of a job, folks. By the way, if you're just tuning into the stream, at the bottom of the description is a link to our own Wicked Foxy Dragon's opinion piece in Medium, and she knocked it right out of the park. Tamara Chance says, in the U.S., San Francisco and California became counterweight to Bush Jr. GOP DC. Yeah, there was a ton of tales of woe, but there were some bright points as well. One last comment before we continue this. Leon Chevalier says, it's hard to decide what's more shocking. Iraq, 9/11, Brexit, all? What the? Yeah, it's been a pretty rambunctious start of the century, and I'm hoping that the middle of this century sort of matches the tone of the middle of the last century. Leon Chevalier says, you're not even close to the best country in the world. Yeah, and if there is anything redeeming about the last couple of years, it's that it is that argument is finally being heard by the average American. I'm not talking about your hippie professor in college. I mean the average American is now willing to acknowledge that we're not the best country in the world by just about any metric. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk case. You'll have a lot of people that grew up with that mindset, let's call it, forced mindset, sort of a cleaning of the brain, if you will. But when you start just dropping facts, like, for example, of the 10 wealthiest countries in the world, we rank for our healthcare system as number 11, We're not even top 10. We're not even top 10. The wealthiest countries in the world measure their healthcare systems. We don't even make the top 10. Yeah. Progress. Sad, disturbing progress.
The part you keep leaving out about Fallujah is that before the fighting began, the Allies tried to get most of the people out of that city and succeeded in evacuating about 80 or 90% of it, if I recall. They were not targeting civilians, and many of the homes that were destroyed by the people we were fighting in that city, who actually booby-trapped them and mined them. What the Russians did in Mariupol was to keep civilians in place and intentionally murder them as a way of breaking their will to resist. That is a huge difference. Okay. We can both agree, Matey, there are war crimes committed in every war, and I'm certain that the United States and its allies committed crimes as they did in World War II and Korea and Vietnam. But you are resolutely ignoring intent here.
No, well, let's talk about intent. If a Russian commander had said...
I take that back. That was not a gish gavel. I'm just frustrated with the guy. But to be fair, that was a straight answer. I don't agree with it, but it wasn't a gish gavel.
Before attacking Mariupol, that he and his forces were fighting...
Gish gallop is what I meant to be saying that whole time.
Satan. And that's why they were going to destroy Mariupol. What would we make of that statement, Tom? I'd be horrified if a Russian commander said that. Wouldn't you be horrified?
An American commander said nutty stuff like that, but that's while they were literally evacuating.
Hold on. Marine Colonel Gary Brandel told his troops in 2004 outside Fallujah, according to the BBC, the enemy has got a face. He's called Satan. He's in Fallujah, and we're going to destroy him. A U.S. Marine sergeant told the UK's Channel 4 News, we'll unleash the dogs of hell. They don't even know what's coming. If there are civilians in there, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those are war crimes, Tom. Marines who served in Fallujah have got...
No, let's put that back up. We'll unleash the dogs of hell. We'll unleash them. They don't even know what's coming. Hell is coming. If there are civilians in there, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. We have to take responsibility for this. If we ever want respect on the international stage ever again, we have to take responsibility for this. Otherwise, it will be in the generations down the line before people even consider treating us like a serious country, because we're just not. And we can't pretend like we are anymore. We can't muscle and dollar our way into respect anymore. Because that's not the true currency of the 21st century. The true currency of the 21st century is, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but being of damn use to the world, of doing things that help people. You make a product people need, that's a currency on the international stage. If you have a resource people need, that's a currency. But pointing guns at people, less and less and less, gets you what you want, because that is barbaric, and the whole world, with a few exceptions, of which America is sadly one, the whole world has agreed that we don't operate that way anymore.
Civilians in there, they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those are war crimes, Tom. Marines who served in Fallujah have got on the record to say,
matey.
we killed civilians.
I don't disagree that you can find commanders who, if you can show that they were intentionally shooting civilians indiscriminately, prosecute them. But your larger argument is that
hold on,
the
Tom.
attack on
Multiple
Fallujah
soldiers
was
have been
itself a
prosecuted.
giant war crime. Pardon?
Yes, I am saying that, and I'm also pointing out that many soldiers have been prosecuted, but George Bush hasn't. The person who laid the groundwork with his lies.
I was just going to say that I did not like how far this conversation strayed from George Bush. Keep it going, Mehdi.
In the run-up to Iraq, and the person who knowingly went into Iraq in violation of international law is Kofi Annan.
We're not going to agree on the issue of lies, Mehdi, and we're certainly not going to agree on the issue of intent.
Are you saying Bush didn't lie about Iraq? Hold on, are you saying...
That's the issue. What do you mean we're not going to agree on issues about lies? That's the issue. That's what this is all about.
I'm saying that I think that Bush and his advisors genuinely convinced themselves that they were going to find what they thought they'd find.
Well, then you thought wrong. Mehdi, bring up the Governor Bush comment. I beg you. You got 2 minutes left in this bitch. Do it.
What they thought they were going to find.
That's not what we've learned in over 20 years. In fact, you wrote in February 2003, Tom, one last question for you, in the immediate wake of Colin Powell's now notorious presentation to the UN, that his case for war was stunning, detailed, free of hyperbole, and that he presented evidence that al-Qaeda and Iraq are in cahoots. Point blank. None of that was true, and this is what Colin Powell himself said about the UN presentation of his, filled with falsehoods, just a few years later. Have a listen.
It is a blot on my record, but, you know, there's nothing I can do to change that blot.
Given you uncritically and...
Nope. There's something we could have done to change the blot on our record. So, our record that we got from hiring that guy and putting him in a position to tell that lie, we could have put him in prison. And now it's too late for that. He not only escaped punishment through dying, but he was treated like a hero when he died. We added further insult to the injury. But we can still get a little bit of redemption because the main nope, less cursing. The main guy is still there.
Pretty enthusiastically echoed his false assertions. Do you accept it's blotted your record too, perhaps forever?
That's why I wrote the piece I wrote. That's why I wrote the book I wrote. I will say that Powell convinced me, but I'll add one other thing. Part of the reason I was willing to be convinced is that the first link between al-Qaeda, VX, and Iraq was actually made during the Clinton administration. So this was part of a long series of these kinds of accusations. And when Powell made the case, he convinced me. He convinced the hell out of me. But yeah, I was wrong. And that's why I wrote the piece I wrote last week to say I supported it, but it was not a just war.
I'm glad you say you're wrong, and I'm glad you accept it wasn't a just war. I just want some accountability for those who fought that unjust war. Tom, thank you so much for continuing our Twitter debate here on the show with me. Appreciate it as ever.
My pleasure, Mehdi.
Yeah, man. Hard to keep it light with that one. But it's easy to get salty about it. I'm genuinely not sure if we will ever see even a formal condemnation of George W. Bush while the man's alive, much less actually filing charges against the guy. But I'll take the moment to stand on the soapbox. It becomes increasingly more likely the bluer American government is. So be prepared to vote. Vote in primaries, first and foremost, and go as far left as you can if you give a damn about justice. And if you are joining us from around the world, keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on interacting with Americans because your very presence helps. I think perhaps more than you're often told. What America desperately needed for much of its existence and took pains to avoid at all costs is the input of people that live outside our borders. Thank God that we have the internet, and it is now nigh on impossible to filter out that opinion. So joining podcasts like this and letting us know what it looked like from your perspective is immensely helpful. So thank you. Let's have a look at some of these comments. Leon Chevalier says, we got robbed, how, why, etc. I don't follow. Gish Callop says, Tamara Chance, sounds like a used car dealer in somewhere, Oklahoma. Yes, it does. Leon Chevalier says, I'd love it if you did a call-in. I would too. And in fact, I think we're going to start doing something like that. I need to figure out a practical system for streaming and taking calls with low bandwidth, or rather with just average bandwidth. But yes, I think that's a good idea, and I think we shall do it. Wireless Mike says, I just watched Bo's video about North Korea and Russia. I saw that. I didn't pull it up yet, though. Interesting. He said it again. It always costs less to... Ooh, interesting. He said it again. It always costs less to just do the right thing. I wish more people thought that way. We could all be better off today. Yeah. Truly. Leon Chevalier says, excuse me. It is a conversation between y'all. Mars Falcon says, null perspiration. As a charming as hell. I love it. Yeah, call-ins would be welcome. Awesome. All right, I'll increase efforts to do that. Let's do just one more. I've been putting her off, and if I'm being real with you, I don't know how valuable this video will actually be. I just know that it was recommended by one of y'all, and it looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene gets it has the two elements that I love most in one of these videos. Number one, a jerk gets embarrassed in a public way. Ooh, I love that. And number two, we're introduced to an up-and-comer. I'm a big fan of both those things. I personally hope, I have no idea who it is, but this video says that Marjorie Taylor Greene gets schooled by some young buck, and I hope that it is Maxwell Frost. We're about to find out. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's see here. Stand by while we do. Yes. All right. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm told, gets schooled by a fact check. Let's have a look at what that looked like.
Will you yield?
Oh, I'll yield. Yes, please.
Yeah, when I was in 11th grade and Joe Biden made our schools gun-free school zones, one of the students in my school brought 3 guns to school, and our entire school went on lockdown because he was the only person with a gun.
Yeah. Did I miss? She said she was in school when... I need to go back. When Joe Biden... I don't understand what she was saying. Hold up. Let me set up here. What the hell was she saying? I honestly don't even get the point she was making. Hold up. Try this again. So she said when Joe Biden was senator, maybe? Yeah, let's find out. Try it again.
Will you yield?
Oh, I'll yield. Yes, please.
Yeah, when I was in 11th grade and Joe Biden made our schools gun-free school zones.
Okay. So that would have been the 90s?
One of the students in my school brought 3 guns to school, and our entire school went on lockdown because he was the only person with a gun.
Quick fact check. When Marjorie Taylor Greene was in 11th grade, George H.W. Bush was president and signed into law the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990. It passed the Senate by a voice vote and the House by a vote of 313 to 1. Just think about the bipartisan consensus on this gun law in 1990. It really shows how radicalized the Republican Party has become. Oh, and not that it needed to be said, but Joe Biden has not, in fact, been president for the past 33 years.
Yeah, I don't. What throws me so much about that is not that she's willing to lie to regular folks. It's that she's confidently willing to lie where MAGA can see her lying. Let's see if that looks cool. Oh, I do kind of like that look. Where MAGA can see her lying. And it's just apparently not important. It's not important at all that it's a lie. And an obvious one. What are you talking about? When Joe Biden did this, I'm sure her justification will be like, well, but he was a senator at the time and he voted for it. But it's nonsensical. Obviously, it's nonsensical. It's just wild. I do think, though, it comes from a place that we've talked about already. The goal, even as I said it, I'm realizing this. The goal is not to persuade. The goal is to confuse. She just wants to get people riled up. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get riled up. It just means you have to, land your shots. She wants to get people riled up so that her constituents see her throwing out wild accusations, and they hear the opposition throwing out what they hear as wild accusations. It's like straight out of that's what fascists do. That is the fascist playbook. It is not to persuade. And if we do what I started doing at the beginning of this, which is try to treat it like it is an honest argument, we're gonna wind up giving them more ground because we're not defending properly.
Not only that, but Marge is lying about the timeline of events. The incident at her school occurred on September 6th, 1990. The bill was not even introduced until October 27th, 1990, and was signed into law on November 29th, 1990, nearly 3 months later. So yes, Marge is lying again.
Will you yield?
Well, we didn't get to find out who the up and comer was, but still damn good. Yeah, of course, she's a liar. Liars lie. The sun rises in the east. It doesn't mean don't fight her. It means do exactly what that guy did if you're a YouTuber. Really well done. Great fact-checking. Remember that the point of all this is to mask what they are doing. Because they will accuse the left of doing something wild and just unbelievable. And then the left will accuse them they will accuse MAGA politicians of doing what they are actually doing, which is wild and damn near unbelievable. Difference being the accusations the left are leveling are true. But the point is not that Marjorie is going for. The point is not to convince anybody that she's right. It's to convince as many people as she can that all politicians are wrong. And the remedy has begun, because the remedy for this is that the courts answer. Consequences, in other words. We provide the difference. The difference should be in consequences and outcomes. One last round of comments. Leon Chevalier says, imagine being in elementary/primary school and having to do shooter drills. Mental. Yeah. Yep. Mars Falcon, it works too. Every single person that heard her say that on her website, faux news, OAN, etc., they believe every single word of it. True. And just remember, you can diffuse this on a case-by-case basis. If you meet somebody that believes this, just ask them those questions. Really, when did this happen? When was she in 11th grade? 1994. Or 1993, whenever the hell they said. 1802. And who was president? Do you think it was honest of her to say that Joe Biden did this? Really? Et cetera, et cetera. You have a distinct advantage there in that you can just ask questions until the person explains for themselves why they are wrong. Oh, God. Wait a minute. Oh, yes. That was brought to us by Stephanie, that last clip. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, folks. Oh, shoot. All right, with what I was just talking about, with helping the person you're debating make your argument for you, that is what we will talk about next time on WYCD Wicked. When I remember that I'm supposed to download it beforehand. Thank you for joining us today on this Salty Saturday. It's been a fun, healthy bitching session. And do recall on Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do Friday Peace Talks. And if you know anybody who only watches corporate media or is well into the Fox side of things, if you know somebody who you think needs a healthier media diet, invite them on over to Peace Talks and tell them to bring a clip of their own, a clip they think we should see. And we'll look at it live, and we'll fact check it live, and we'll be polite, and we'll be welcoming, kind, but truthful. I'm curious to see how far we can go with this. I'll work on getting a call-in system because I think you're right. That's a good idea. In the meantime, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do, where on all streams except for Friday and Saturday, we actually tell you what you can do about the various woes of the world. I'll see you next time. My name's Jake.